Hello, welcome to this edition of Life Recovery Chats. Today we're going to be talking about step 4 of the 12 steps. So please join us and then we'll go over some key points together. Step 4 is that we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. This step is so huge. The first key point I want to make about this step is that this step is where the rubber meets the road, and most people don't make it here. I've been in 12-step recovery for quite a while now, probably close to 20 years. And, I've been to AA meetings, I've been to 12-step meetings, and I've been around a lot of people who have been involved in looking at this program. And I would probably say that 90 to 95% of the people that I've met in those meetings haven't made it to step 4 and haven't actually done a step 4. Usually they abandon the process before they make it here. But step 4 is probably really when the work gets started in the 12-step program. It's not that you're not doing any work in the first 3 steps. You're seeking out a higher power. You're coming into a realization of yourself. You're beginning to learn to walk in the truth and come out of denial. But ultimately, you haven't really put a pen to paper at this point. You haven't really started doing the hard work. And this, once you reach that place of surrender, this step is really where you start the hard work that has to go in order to continue on the journey of recovery in your life. The next key point I want to make is when it comes to this step, you want to keep the end goal in mind. You want to let go of the past. This is the key to peace and long-term recovery, is both these things together. And so you don't want to be burdened down with heaviness as you go through this, although there's going to be some heavy things that come out as you begin to do this step. But you want to always remember that the end goal is that you want a lifelong walk of recovery. You want a lifelong walk of health and peace in your soul. You want to get to the roots of the problem, and you really want to be able to journey. And so it's important to remember as you enter into step 4, even though you just simply take it one step at a time, that you remember that there is an end goal to this. It's not just simply some exercise of uncomfortability for you. There is an end goal, and that end goal is to see a solid walk of recovery come into your life. The next one is that having a sponsor or mentor who has been through these steps at this point is hugely helpful. As you enter into doing a step 4, it's so good to have someone to consult with who's done a step 4 before, who can give you some advice and some pointers on how to do a step 4 effectively. And so at this point in your recovery journey, it's a good idea to seek out a mentor or a sponsor if you haven't done that yet. Someone who's been through the 12 steps who can help you on this journey of going through both this step and the steps to come. The next point, and this is very, very important, is that you want to write it out. You want to write down a list of people, situations, events, our poor choices, relationships, and reactions to them. There's, again, at the beginning of this series, I referenced the Life Recovery Workbook by Stephen Arterburn. You can check that out in the description box below, but it has some real practical questions that you can walk through in that book that will help you to do a step 4. But regardless of whether or not you decide to use that book, step 4 is one of writing. It's one where you get a pad and a pen and you start going through your history and you start really dissecting the moments in your life, going as far back as you can remember, where you had those moral choices, you had those things in your life that were either done to you or that you did to others, just the morality that was attached to that when your conscience pricked you and you ignored it, or you went on your own way. And it can be a very difficult step to do. But again, if you've already done the first 3 steps, you pray and you ask God to help you with this step. And right now, you're just simply writing it out. So that it's just between you and God at this point. We haven't invited someone else other than getting some advice from our mentor or sponsor on how to do it. But ultimately, it's between you and God. And you really pray through this and you go through it thinking, what were those key moments in my life? What were those key decisions that were made that where I went down the wrong path, where I ended up in this addicted situation that I find myself in today. And I already mentioned this one, but this is to be done prayerfully, as God knows us better than we even know ourselves. And so that's why God is such a big part of this process, both because he's the author of morality. The reason why we have these internal morals that exist is because there is a lawgiver, and that lawgiver is God. And he's put that conscience in every single person to know the difference between right and wrong. And sometimes that conscience can get skewed over time. But every person has some kind of level of knowing right from wrong. And every person at times, even with that inner conscience telling them this is a path that they shouldn't be walking down, has crossed that line and walked down that path. And as you do that over time, you kind of wear down that conscience. But when you become reconnected with your Creator, you become reconnected with your higher power, and you begin to walk in relationship with Him, He's able to begin to reveal to you once again, as you journey into the past with Him, those key moments where you made those decisions that ended up leading you to a place where you're now bound in addiction. And God is more than happy to assist you in that as you write out this list and you make this searching and fearless moral inventory of yourself. The final key point I want to make is that fear is an enemy that must be overcome with God's help to do this and the preceding steps, so the steps that follow this one. And so fear throughout this whole process is an enemy that needs to be conquered in order to go through all the 12 steps. Again, that's why I think surrendering to God is such a key and crucial point, because God is able to come and help you conquer the enemy of fear. When you understand that God is a loving God, that He's a forgiving God, that He actually wants to see you fruitful and blessed in your life. He wants to see you healthy and whole. He doesn't want you to be addicted to substances and in chains and bondage. And one of those bondages is fear. And fear will stop you from being able to do both this step and the steps that come. I remember going through these steps myself for the first time, and this one wasn't quite as fearful as the one that comes after it. But all throughout the process, fear tries to stop you from continuing to go on. And that fear is only conquered, I believe, through listening to God, through trusting Him, through listening to the other people who can tell you that these steps have caused a spiritual awakening in them, that they've made a change and they've been able to stay sober because they've implemented these principles into their lives. But they all had to conquer fear. They all had to overcome fear. And see, fear is not something that is going to become absent as you go through these, but it needs to be conquered through courage. When a firefighter runs into a burning building, it's not that the fear is not there. It's just that the fear is overcome because he desires to save life over the fear that's inside of him. And so it's the same way for us, is we need that courage to be able to come upon us in understanding that the end goal is greater than the fear we're experiencing in the moment, and trusting God in the process of that. So those are some key points on step 4, and I wish you the best of luck if you're entering into this step. This is a great starting step in the journey of recovery, and as you continue on, I know from personal experience, you will find more peace, you will find more joy. And if you truly commit yourself to going through all these steps after you've surrendered your life to God, you will find freedom from addictions and you will learn to live in a healthier way. So God bless you all. We'll see you next time.